fitness trainer, all that. Oh, perfect. So it's recording. I'm a dietitian. I kind of do a lot of different things, but I was once a student athlete myself, and obviously still carry fitness throughout. So sports nutrition is something that I'm very interested in, very passionate about. So when I got the opportunity to share with you guys, it was kind of the best of both worlds. So when we're talking about sports nutrition, it all kind of comes down to energy. So what is energy? Energy is the ability to perform work. So how do we obtain energy? Food, specifically nutrients. So when we look at nutrients, we're thinking carbohydrates, proteins, fats. So a lot of times you'll hear the words vitamin, mineral, water, which are all super important, but they're not foods that are going to give us energy. So when we look at what energy specifically is, we're looking at macronutrients versus micronutrients. So macronutrients, you're going to kind of think your bigger, your broader nutrients that are going to give us energy. So when we're looking at calories and how many calories we get in a day, we're looking at what carbs, protein, and fat are providing us with. So macronutrients, the body needs it in order to generate energy in the form of ATP. So micronutrients, we've got vitamins, minerals, which are so great and so important for all the kind of little functions throughout our daily life, thinking like vitamin D, iron, selenium, all those types of things. Those are all super important, but they're not necessarily a source of energy. So sports nutrition, we're really looking at how can we get energy and maximize it to be able to perform work. So how do we obtain energy? Measuring energy from food. So we look at calories. So as I mentioned before, calories are what are going to provide us energy. It's how we kind of figure out, okay, this is how much we're getting on a daily basis. So calories, it's the heat needed to raise 1 kilogram, 1 liter of water to 1 degree Celsius. So the food calorie is technically a kilocalories. So when I'm kind of talking in nutrition terms, I'm always saying like kcals. So 1 kilocalorie is equal to 1 calorie uppercase. So nutrient amounts vary depending on each individual requirement and restriction. So that's kind of how I'm employed today, is because not every single person is the same. So my biggest philosophy and what I always try to preach with Culinary Fights Cancer as well is that healthy looks different on every single person. So if you take anything out of my presentation today, it's that the person sitting next to you or the person on the field next to you, their nutrition is widely different from yours. So it's important to remember that we all kind of have a different version of healthy, but hopefully what I tell you today can help kind of guide you in the right direction of what's best for you. Carbohydrates. So I'm sure many of you guys know of carbs. I'm sure you guys have heard of the keto diet, all that stuff. But believe it or not, carbs are very, very important, especially being an athlete. The main substrate of carbs are glucose. So when carbs are broken down, it creates glucose. Glucose is then converted into energy for our body to use. Carbs are the preferred source of energy for our brain, for our heart, for our muscles. They require glucose to function. So when we don't have glucose, what happens is our body starts to take protein and fats and convert it into glucose as well. But that process takes a lot longer. So with athletes, carbs are a preferred source. So energy content. So as we kind of brushed on in the last slide, energy is given to us by calories. Calorie is created from carbohydrates, fat, and protein. So when we look at the energy content, for 1 gram, there's 4 calories in it for carbohydrates. So 4 calories per gram. The advantage of carbs is the energy is metabolically available for the use relatively quickly and can last for long duration. So as I was saying, it's our body's preferred source. If we do not have it, our body has to go through different processes that takes a lot longer to get that energy. So for athletes, it's really recommended that we have carbs in our diet so that it's available quickly and for that long duration in stores. So like I just said, storage. We have a lot of stores of glucose in our body in different forms. So when glucose is stored in our body, it's stored as something called glycogen. So circulating glucose is the best source of energy for our brain. It's also stored in our liver and our muscles. So it's really important that even if you're not training, you're still eating carbs because it's important to build up those stores. So let's say you're on the field for 90 minutes. You have a snack beforehand, you have a banana or something like that, you're going to run through that pretty quickly. So it's important that we have these backup stores to be able to provide us with that energy we need for those last couple minutes of sprints. Protein. So being an athlete, I'm sure you've heard a lot about protein and a lot of mixed reviews. Do I use protein powder? Do I eat meat? Do I not eat meat? What do I do? There's so many different kind of fields of knowledge out there. So to break it down, protein, when it is broken down in our body, is broken down into something called an amino acid. So up in the corner, you'll see it's a nitrogen group and 2 hydrogens. So if anyone's a science major, you understand this. If not, you don't need to understand it. It doesn't matter. But just to show you it kind of broken down. Protein and amino acids, we have 21 amino acids in our body that we need. 9 are essential. So what does essential amino acids mean? It means our body's unable to make them, so we have to get it for our diet. So 9 essential amino acids, you have to get it from your diet. So if you've ever heard of something called a complete protein, that means that it has all 9 essential amino acids. So meats are going to be complete proteins, quinoa, complete protein, tofu, soy, different things like that, complete protein. So a lot of foods have some of the amino acids and may have some protein content, but it doesn't necessarily mean that it's a complete protein. So we always want to try to get those 9 essential amino acids from our diet. Branched chain amino acids are another form of amino acids. I'm sure you've heard about BCAAs. I'll kind of touch on that later on, but just kind of keeping that in your head. Protein provides the body with structural support. So thinking our muscles, kind of it builds in chains, as you can see up above, and it provides us with that structure. Energy content is the same as carbohydrates, so it's 4 calories per gram. It's stored in our muscles, obviously, which is why we build muscle and everything like that. But the body does not usually utilize protein for energy. So 1 to 4% is used for total energy. So we are not getting energy. So the ability to perform work we're not getting that energy from protein. We're getting it from carbs. And then during long durations, we're also tapping into fat stores. But protein is used as building blocks. It's used to create that muscle so that you can push, so you do have that power. It's a last resort for energy. So it is not used unless it is absolutely needed to. So during periods of starvation, different things like that, that's when protein could be tapped into. Too much protein in our diet, as I said before, can be converted to glucose. So glucose is what carbs are broken down to and our body's source of energy. So when we get actually too much protein in our diet, it will just end up being turned into glucose. So there is such a thing as too much protein, but as an athlete, it's really hard to get to that point. I provided some pictures of kind of different sources of protein. So at the bottom, you have your kind of commercialized protein powders, and then your more natural food sources of protein above. Let's see, it doesn't want me to click. There we go. So fats. Last macronutrient group we're going to talk about here is fats. So the substrate, what is broken down to, is into something called fatty acids or triglycerides. So I'm sure you've heard of triglycerides, fatty acids, but fats are the most energy dense macronutrients. So what do I mean by that? It's the most efficient at storing energy. So when we look at the energy content compared to carbs and protein, there's actually 9 calories per gram. So it's a lot more dense. It packs a lot more energy into a small amount. So that's why you probably see like, okay, it's really weird. Peanut butter, 2 tablespoons is somehow 190 calories, but you have 2 tablespoons of grapes or rice and it's probably 30 calories, not even. So it's a lot more energy dense. So that means it's a lot more, you need less, but you get a lot more. So examples in our diet include nuts, oils, butter, full fat dairy, salmon, seeds, different things like that, avocado. Storage of fat, so it's really great at being stored. So in our subcutaneous fat, so that's going to be like our skin fold areas, like if you feel around your tricep, you're going to feel some fat there. Visceral fat, we can't see that, but that's the fat that's surrounding our organs. Adipose tissue in our serum, so in our blood, and in the intramuscular space, so in between our muscles. So fat is kind of stored all over our body. It's very well distributed, but it's a really important thing to have. So as an athlete, we probably don't have a ton of body fat on us, but it's important that you have some. You don't want to be too small where you don't have any fat and you're not able to tap into those stores when needed. So building a plate. So as an athlete, even not as an athlete, as someone who just works out, anything like that, this is such a great way to kind of look at, okay, how am I going to build my plate? So we just kind of tapped into what are our macronutrients. So our carbs, our fat, and our protein. We need all three of those in each meal that we have throughout the day. So on average, we're having around 3 meals a day, 2 to 3 snacks. So breakfast, lunch, and dinner, maybe a mid-morning snack, afternoon snack, maybe after dinner snack. 50 to 55% of your daily calories are going to be from carbohydrates. So that's half of your calories. So let's say your goal is to get 2,400 calories in a day. You're going to need at least probably 1,200 of those calories from carbohydrates. 25 to 30% are going to be from fat. So again, it's not going to be a super large amount. You would be really surprised by how easily you can hit that goal, but it's important that we have it. Fat is so important, especially for athletes, for not only muscle contraction, but also for absorbing fat soluble vitamins, and maintaining that long duration energy. 20 to 25% of our calories are going to be from protein. So trying to hit that protein goal, which I'll kind of get into next of how we can calculate our protein goal for the day. But this is kind of the breakdown you want to follow for your daily intake. So if you're kind of wondering, okay, how much should I be having of each macronutrient? This is a rough estimate. So when we're building our plate, I love to look at it as kind of more this and less of specific portion sizes. So 25%, so 1/4 of your plate should be some type of protein. So here it shows salmon, but poultry, beef, lamb, fish, eggs, dairy, soy, so tofu, tempeh, legumes, nuts. So when you're at the dining hall or if you're in your dorm, apartment, creating a meal, try to think, okay, where can I get 1/4 of my plate to be some sort of protein? When we look at carbs, we're going to want it to be at least like 1/3 to half of our plate. So here we've got some rice, so some grains, some carbs, and then we also have some fruit over on the side, and then some vegetables. So always trying to have some type of fruit and vegetable in with your meal. Yes, that does provide us energy, but that's where we're going to tap into those micronutrients that are really important. So your vitamins, your vitamin A, your vitamin D, vitamin C, all those different things that are really important that we get might not necessarily provide us energy, but they're important for recovery. And then hydration. Hydration is so key. I will get into, again, more of how we can get that in, and how much we specifically need, but hydration in the form of not only water, but also electrolytes. So water, dairy, non-dairy beverages, diluted juice, coffee, tea. Don't just be drinking coffee all day, because coffee is also a diuretic. So it's going to make you also lose water. But I always say that for every cup of coffee you have, you should have a cup of water. And then fats. So finding where you're going to get your fats in. So always trying to have at least 2 tablespoons of fat. So when you're trying to think of what a tablespoon is, it's going to be the top of your thumb here. So that's 1 tablespoon. You're going to need at least 2 minimum tablespoons of some type of fat. So avocado, olive oil, nuts, butter, cheese, seeds, anything like that. You're going to want that with every single meal. So when we look at this and how we have it broken down, you have your protein, you have your carbs, you have your at least 2 tablespoons of fat, you have your fruits and vegetables, and you have your hydration. So when you're having a meal, not necessarily a snack, but a meal, this is what you're going to want. Protein needs. So when we're looking at this, protein is so important for muscle synthesis. So what does that mean? Muscle building. So when we're looking at athletes, so not looking at athletes, someone who's super sedentary, their protein needs are not going to be as high. But with you guys, it's important that we make sure that you're getting enough protein. So if everyone can just take a second, I want you to think about, if you know how much you weigh, take how much you weigh in pounds. So let's say you are 220 pounds. Divide your weight in pounds by 2.2. That's going to give you your weight in kilograms. Okay. So now that you have your weight, so take a minute, divide your weight in pounds by 2.2. So it's going to be a lower number. So let's say you were 220 pounds, you're now 100 kilograms. So to find out how much protein you need in a day, it should be at least 1.4 to 2 times that amount. So 100 times 1.4, you need at least a minimum of 140 grams of protein a day, or 200 grams of protein a day. So 140 to 200 is going to be kind of your range of protein. I would say probably trying to hit right in the middle of that is going to be key. So around 160, 170. But yeah, if anyone has any questions about that, please drop that in the chat box. But it's really simple to kind of figure it out. And it's important that you know how much your body needs. So thinking every day, like, how am I hitting those goals? And so I provided a little kind of graphic down here of how we could get protein in just from snacks. So this is just 55 grams of snacks. So yogurt, you have some flax seeds, some almonds, some protein powder. Yogurt, Greek yogurt specifically, is a great way to get in some protein. So it's usually a minimum of like 15 grams of protein per one of those single serve cups. And I know previously from my college experience, they have Greek yogurt kind of everywhere. So this is a great source of not only a way to get in protein, but also to get in some carbs and some fat. So right there, you've got 28 grams. Let's say that's your mid-morning snack. You work out, you have a meal, later on, you have a protein bar, 20 grams of protein. There you go. You've already hit more. And then later on at night after dinner, you're still kind of hungry. So you reach for some more protein and you have a cheese stick. That's 7 grams. So again, trying to figure out your meals are probably going to be around at least 30 grams of protein. So all that stuff kind of adds up and you're kind of around that range. If you add 30, 30, 30, 90 plus 55, you're getting close to that. So looking at what you need in a day, again, you take your weight in pounds, divide it by 2.2, that gives you your weight in kilograms. Then you times that number by 1.4 all the way up to 2.0. That's going to be kind of the goal range you want. People who are bodybuilding, different things like that, they could need up to 3 grams per kilogram of protein, but if I had to guess, this is probably the range of what most of you guys need. Okay, so as I just kind of talked about, how to meet protein needs throughout the day. So here's kind of an example. So we have a 180-pound athlete, 1.8 grams of kilogram per body weight, or 0.82 grams per pound. So they need around 147 grams of protein total. So that's, again, 30 to 40 grams per meal, 10 to 20 grams per snack. So tips to achieve this, regardless of what you're doing, as I kind of said, eating every 3 to 4 hours is going to be key. So whether that's a meal or a snack, you want to try to get something in every 3 to 4 hours up until bedtime. So 20 to 40 grams post-workout, really trying to get in some good protein after a workout. And again, it doesn't have to be 20 minutes after a workout, 15 minutes after a workout, but within at least 2 hours, I recommend trying to get a big bulk of protein in. At nighttime, let's say you are reaching for a snack before bedtime, as I talked about, trying to have some type of protein. Maybe you end up having like a protein shake and an apple or something just simple like that. And then also carry snacks with you. So always having snacks on hand is going to be key. Can you carry a protein bar in your bag? Can you carry cheese sticks, yogurts, anything like that? Can you have those ready in your fridge in your dorm? Anything like that, try to always have stuff available. So here it just kind of runs through a sample day of eating. So you've got 7 a.m. you have your breakfast, 10:15 you have your pre-workout snack, 11 a.m. you have your training, 1 p.m. your post-workout meal, your lunch, 4:30 you have another snack, some yogurt, 7 p.m. you have your dinner, and then maybe 10 p.m. you have a nighttime shake. So it's easy once you see it kind of here, but it's a lot harder throughout the day to figure it out. So just again, keeping in mind what your body needs for protein and then trying to divide that evenly throughout the day. Okay, so why fuel energy matters so much in sport? So when we look at different energy systems, so we know that energy is the ability to perform work. So depending on what kind of athlete you are or what you're kind of doing, you're probably hitting a lot of these different energy systems. So when we look at the different systems, we're looking at the different duration and intensity of the exercise. So we're kind of looking at how much energy we're using and then how long we're using it. So we have our phosphagen system. So that's going to be used right away, really quick sources of energy, short-term energy. Aerobic, that's going to be, so we're still using oxygen. We're still kind of in that phase of, yes, we're working hard, but we're not burnt out. Anaerobic, we're without oxygen. You have been going for a while. You're getting tired, you're leveling off. So that's more, again, your quick sprints, hit, everything like that. Aerobic is going to be kind of more of your, let's say you're a midfield, different things like that. You're constantly running aerobic, always kind of using energy, not maxing out, but still there. So we have our athlete one, they're 5'10", 185-pound weightlifter. We think about weightlifting, you're using short-term energy. So ATP is our energy. So when glucose is converted in our body, it's created into ATP, which is energy. So it's going to be mainly our phosphagen system and our anaerobic. So without energy, we're out of breath after we're doing it. Athlete 2, 5'10", 127 pounds, marathon runner, more tapping into long-term energy and more aerobic. So again, I'll kind of get into why this is important, but it's just to remember that there's different energy is used in different ways. So as I said before, healthy looks different on every single one of you. So maybe your friends are into more like quick sprints, weightlifter, everything like that. And then maybe you have another friend who's running 2 hours a day. So it's important to remember that everyone has kind of different needs. Duration and intensity. So when exercise intensity increases, carbohydrates are our favorite nutrient. So again, it's going to provide us that quick burst of energy you need. So I'm sure you have a lot of you guys have heard of maybe weightlifters who keep like fruit snacks, Hawaiian rolls in their bags, whatever it is, and they pop it in and then they're like, okay, I'm going to go try to max out PR my squat. That's why they're doing it, because carbohydrates, as that intensity increases, carbohydrates are going to be our favorite nutrient. When exercise duration increases, fats are going to start to be utilized. So I don't know if you remember, but as we talked about, fats are stored, but they're not necessarily used right away. So once we burn through our carbohydrate sources, that's when we start to tap into our fat. So it's important to always have a mix of each, but just to kind of remember as duration increases, we're going to start to tap into a different source of energy. So how do we fuel our body? Pre-workout nutrition. So sure you guys have been told a lot of different things, but I would say the general guideline is to prioritize easy to digest carbohydrates. So your simple, ready to eat carbohydrates, and then limiting fat and fiber. So when fat is digested in our body, it takes a while to digest. One, because it's very energy dense. So our body has to go through a lot of different processes. So that's why fat's super important to have with our meals, because it slows down that glucose spike. But before running or before a game or something like that, you don't want your body to have to be working hard to digest a fat at that time. So limiting fat, limiting fiber that could cause any digestive issues. So your simple carbohydrates, your fresh fruit, your dried fruit, your mango, cherries, cranberries, different things like that. Sports drinks, pretzels, granola bars, toast with some jam, anything like that. Those are going to be easy to digest carbohydrates. So high intensity, so 30 to 75 minutes. Realistically, you're not going to need that much. So having a banana before is probably going to be perfect for you. Endurance and high intensity, so we're talking 1 to 2 hours of work, 30 grams per hour of work. So trying to remember that maybe it's, if you're a marathon runner, an hour into your run, you're trying to take one of your chews or different things like that. Endurance for 2 to 3 hours, you're going to need around 30 to 60 grams of carbs per hour. Endurance for greater than 2.5 hours, up to 90 grams of carbs per hour. So carbs, again, we need it for our quick energy and to be able to sustain what we are doing. Okay, so how do we look at then a breakfast? So we just talked about before, we're really going to want to keep it super simple. So let's say you have a workout planned at 10 a.m. or 9 a.m., let's say. So before, you're like, okay, I'm really hungry, I need to get something in. So you decide to have 2 eggs and a bowl of fruit. So you have your super easy to digest carbohydrates, a little bit of protein, a little bit of fat, but not a lot. Afterwards is when you're really going to pack all that stuff, all your macronutrients in. So you've got 3 eggs, 1 sausage link, half an avocado, toast, a bowl of fruit, different things like that. That's when you're really going to bulk it up and focus on all 3 macronutrients. When we're looking at post-workout nutrition, we want to think of 3 things. 1, refueling, so replacing muscle glycogen. So that's going to be our stores of carbohydrates. 2, repairing muscle, so initiating protein synthesis, initiating growth of muscle. And then replenishing, so rehydrating our fluids and our electrolytes. So refuel, repair, replenish. Carbohydrates, as I said, always kind of important to have before, in the middle, after. They're always a part of our meals. Protein, though, general guideline is to consume at least 20 to 25 grams of protein within about an hour of exercise. So 20 to 40, I would say, is probably depending on your goals of protein per day. But again, general guideline, at least 20. Hydration wise, common recommendations are to consume 16 to 24 ounces. So when you're thinking 16 ounces, let's say you get a plastic water bottle at the store, that's going to be about 16 ounces. So 16 to 24 ounces of fluid for every pound lost during exercise. So if you're exercising for a half hour, I would say, again, at least 8 ounces, full hour, another 8 ounces, at least getting in like 16 ounces of fluids. So water, it's a lot of times the forgotten nutrient. So we forget about it a lot because it's not providing us energy, but we need it to keep going. So there's a lot of different things that affect how much water we have in our body and our fluid balance. So we can look at temperature, body composition, humidity, sweat rate, clothing and equipment, altitude, exercise duration, intensity, and frequency. So it's best to begin an event properly hydrated. So a big thing is pre-event hydrating. So never walking into an event and deciding, okay, I'm going to drink all my fluids before then. You should go into the event having really focused on hydration for at least 24 hours before. So recommended 16 ounces of fluid the evening prior. That's just a minimum, and the same amount upon waking. So at least 32 ounces within that 12 hours. Pre-exercise hydration will not benefit you if it's less than 30 minutes before the event. So like I said, really focus on that pre-event hydrating. Endurance athletes should also focus on consumption of salty foods. So 24 hours prior to the event, have some pretzels, add some salt to your potatoes, anything like that. Focus on salty foods to also have that in your body as well. So again, general guidelines, consume 4 ounces of fluids every 15 minutes during training. So at least up to 16 ounces per hour. Sports drinks. So there's a lot of talk around these. Should I be doing the zero? Should I be doing the regular? Should this, that? There's a lot of different things out there, but as an athlete, it's okay to have the normal sports drinks, especially intra, so during an event. So it's formulated concentrations of sugar electrolytes. So it's going to have your sugar, so your glucose, it's going to have your sodium, your potassium, different things like that that your body needs. So it may not provide enough sodium. So it may be diluted for taste if you're doing more of a zero. It's good to note that there is a difference between energy drinks and sports drinks. So an energy drink is not equivalent to a sports drink. So always try to aim on more sports drinks, not necessarily energy drinks. Primarily stimulant compounds and sugar. So electrolytes and then micronutrients are secondary. So they recommend that electrolyte content of sports drinks and electrolytes are around 150 to 180 milligrams of sodium. So how you can tell that, flipping over your bottle, looking at the back, at least 150 milligrams of sodium, and 60 to 75 milligrams of potassium per 8 ounces, and no less than 500 milligrams per liter. So again, your biggest nutrients you're really going to want to make sure are in there for hydration are sodium and potassium. So products with adequate carbohydrates and for intense long duration training are going to be these kind of chews up here, the Nuun, the NUUN, however you say that, that's a great one for hydration, also has carbs in it. Products for heavy sweaters. So if you find yourself sweating a lot, liquid IV, LMNT, different things like that, those are going to be great for you. And then products for moderate intense training. So just probably your like average day to day is going to be those Nuun little tablets, the Vega Sport, different things like that. So again, these are just some guidelines, just some things to think about, but really making sure that your sports drinks are actually giving you what you need. Okay, so meal and snack ideas. So we've talked a lot about how to build a plate, what we need on our plate, but when it comes down to it, what are we actually putting on our plate? Breakfast. So starting your day with a protein-rich breakfast can help not only keep you full and satisfied, but also help promote muscle growth and recovery. So it's really important that you prioritize breakfast. So if you're not someone that's a huge breakfast person, it may be time to start changing that, at least making sure you're getting in 20 to 40 grams of protein. So oatmeal is a great one. So you can add milk, the Ripple pea milk. I don't know if you guys have seen that before. So it's a pea-based milk, soy milk, protein powder. You can add a scoop or two of protein powder to your oatmeal, which is always super good. Nuts, nut butters, seeds, different things like that. That's a great way to kind of bulk up your oatmeal. Another thing I've also done, which is kind of maybe unconventional, but a way to kind of add in some protein, is to add 1/3 a cup of egg whites to your oats, and just kind of add that in. So eggs, you can add ground turkey, smoked salmon, chicken sausage, different things like that. Smoothies, you can add Greek yogurt, protein powder, great way. Toast, add some Greek yogurt, cottage cheese, nut butters, hard-boiled eggs. All these things are available in some capacity at dining halls. So take advantage of these. Lunch and dinner. Again, it doesn't have to be complicated. It can be something as simple as a snack plate. So maybe you have a couple hard-boiled eggs, shredded chicken, crackers, hummus, guac, nuts, seeds, veggies, fruit, anything like that. A lentil pasta, so chickpea or lentil or whole grain pasta, add some chicken in, sauteed veggies, different things like that. Sandwich or wrap. So again, it can be super simple. So some bread, turkey, cheese, hummus, avocado, fruit on the side, avocado toast, eggs. That doesn't just have to be for breakfast. So get creative, find ways that you can add these protein sources in. And then snacks. So I always like to say prioritize protein and produce. So how can I find a protein source? How can I have a produce? So apple slices and nut butter. Apple and peanut butter is my jam. So however you can get that in, that is the easiest snack. Hard-boiled eggs and an orange, tomatoes and string cheese, hummus and carrots, yogurt and berries, bananas and nuts. Anything like that, you're going to want to think produce and then protein. Halftime fuel. So if you're in a sport where you have a halftime, there is a time to replenish your stores, to build up those electrolytes again, to have simple carbohydrates ready. So think sports drinks, simple to eat fruits such as bananas, orange slices, watermelon. Watermelon's great because not only is it a carbohydrate, but it's also hydrating. So it has potassium, it has different things like that. Snack on a little container of watermelon. Applesauce, like squeeze pouches, dried fruit, pretzels, bagels. If you have a longer duration, so maybe you're doing back-to-back games, you have an hour in between or 2 hours in between, add in like a Greek yogurt or something like that, or a half of a sandwich. Avoid protein bars that have artificial sweeteners in them or soluble fiber. So I'm sure all of you have at one point heard of Quest bars. Do not eat those in between a meal. The artificial sugars can wreak havoc on our digestive system. So avoid protein bars with artificial sweeteners in them, at least around game times and event times. Rest day fuel. So contrary to popular belief, it's really important that we stay up with our fuel even on rest days. So our goals are going to be muscle recovery, preparing for future training, and fueling our body. So priorities are going to be protein, 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 complex carbs. So complex carbs compared to simple carbs are complex carbs are going to be more your whole grains, your carbs with fiber in them. So fruit with skin, seeds, brown rice, whole grain toast, oats, different things like that. Those are going to be more complex. So they take longer to digest because they have more fiber in them. Micronutrients, so things such as like polyphenols, so that we find in cherries, turmeric, different things like that. I actually had to write an 8-page paper on turmeric. So ask me anything about it, I can tell you about it. But turmeric is great for decreasing inflammation in our body from training. So turmeric, things that antioxidants, berries, different things like that, those are great for decreasing that inflammation, especially on our rest days. And then fluids, keep up with your hydration. Fluids and protein, they should not be decreased just because you're not working out. So remember, we want to still get these in. Okay, so supplements. I figured I definitely needed to touch on these because they are such a hot topic, and I always get asked, should I be taking this? Should I be taking this? Should I be drinking this? Should I be buying this green juice? Everything like that. I put in the two, I feel like, most popular supplements that we talk about as athletes, starting with creatine. So creatine is a compound that occurs naturally in our body, but a majority of it is stored in our body's muscle. So this helps to provide us for energy in short, high intensity exercises. So I don't know if you guys remember me talking about the phosphagen system. So this is when creatine is going to be used. It's stored in our muscle as phosphocreatine. As the name mentioned, phosphagen system, it's going to be used for that short, high intensity exercise. So benefits, it can enhance sprint performance, maximal strength and power, and have a positive effect on lean muscle mass. Who may benefit? All athletes consisting at a high intensity and weight training. Vegan and vegetarians may especially benefit because you're not necessarily getting the right nutrients to create phosphocreatine stores in your body. What to look for in a supplement, you're going to want to consume around 3 to 5 grams per day of creatine monohydrate. Athletes should only use products that are third-party tested. So what does that mean? It's Informed Sport Certified or NSF certified for sport. So it will say on the product if it is a certified product, so NSF certified. So really make sure these are tested. Supplements are not regulated. So someone could be saying that this is a creatine supplement and it could have like not even a milligram of creatine in it, and no one would know because there's just no way of regulating it all. So making sure they're Informed Sport Certified or NSF certified for sport is really important when you're choosing a product to spend your money on. Okay, BCAAs, I said I would get back to this. So just to touch on it, we have 3 branched chain amino acids in our body: isoleucine, leucine, and valine. So BCAAs are a unique other form of amino acids that can be oxidized in muscle for fuel. So it can kind of help us with energy. They can help prevent muscle breakdown during exercise and are beneficial after exercise for stimulating muscle building and promoting that recovery that we need. So it may also be beneficial, as I say may, because studies again are so fluid, but they may also be beneficial for athletes during recovery from injury, and could limit muscle wasting, so and atrophy. So you don't necessarily need to go out and buy or purchase a supplement. You can get this from food. So dairy, eggs, poultry, fish, a combined plant-based sources. So as I said, to make it a complete protein, soybeans, lentils, nuts, chickpeas, different things like that. So BCAAs, you really don't need to be spending your money on. You can get this from food sources. When we're looking at our supplements, always perform a supplement safety check. So as I said, they are not regulated. So 3 questions you should always ask before you choose to take a supplement. 1, am I already consuming enough of the nutrient naturally? 2, how can I modify my diet to get enough of the nutrient through food? And then 3, is the supplement I'm going to use safe and effective? So safe is third party tested. Effective, there's evidence-based research proving the effectiveness. So do your research. I would say the best website you could go to is PubMed, and just search the supplement you're looking for, read articles, see if there's really even information backing it. Always do your research before you spend your money and make sure something is safe. Okay, so in summary, we've talked about a lot today. I figured I would just bullet point the kind of main things I really want you to take away from this. Energy equals performance. If we are not giving our body energy, we are not going to perform. So the main nutrients we need to consider when we're building our plate are carbs, protein, and fats. So our 3 macronutrients. Protein intake should range from 1.4 to 2.0 grams per kilograms a day. Pre-workout, we're going to want to focus on easy to digest carbohydrates. So your bananas, your dried fruits, your pretzels, your oats, different things like that. Very easy to digest. Your intro workout, easy to digest carbs, fluids, and electrolytes. Think watermelon, think sports drinks. Post-workout, carbohydrates, at least 20 to 25 grams of protein, probably more. And then hydration. So at least 16 ounces for an hour of exercise. Rest days include refueling, protein, hydration, and antioxidants to reduce inflammation and prepare for the next day's workouts. Supplements are just that, supplementation. So aim to get your nutrients from food first. Supplements should only be supplemented if absolutely needed. So I definitely recommend working with someone before you add a supplement to your diet. If you wouldn't mind giving us a follow, that would be so awesome. So my handle is Rebalance Nutrition _. I always try to share a bunch of different nutrition facts, ranging from sports, mindful eating, different things like that. And then the Culinary Fights Cancer Foundation. So we host culinary classes once a month for cancer patients, all free of charge to them. and their families, anyone who has gone through it. We want to host cooking classes for them with different Cleveland chefs. So our goal is to get the word out there. If you know anyone who would be interested, if you have a family member who has gone through it or is going through it, if you've been affected by it, please visit our website. Please follow us, share the message, because we only hope to make this go up from here. So yeah, and then I left a little slide for questions. So I will open that up for you guys.
Emily, thanks so much. I actually do have a couple of questions that came in.
Yeah.
And first, I'll let everyone here know that the OAC Student Athlete Advisory Committee met earlier this week, and I think we're going to come up with some creative ways that maybe the OAC and our teams can help fundraise for Culinary Fights Cancer, given that's founded by someone that is within our conference. So we're excited about that.
Awesome.
Emily, the first question is, so you mentioned a couple of times to avoid artificial sweeteners. Can you explain why artificial sweeteners are so bad and why we should stay away from those?
Yeah, absolutely. So artificial sweeteners, when they're processed in our GI tract, so in our stomach and our small intestine, what it does is it is not digested, so it draws water in, and it can kind of cause like bloating, different things like that, because it's not necessarily, it almost ferments in our digestive system. So it's important to kind of watch how much you're using, especially if you're training and you're training within a certain amount of time. The last thing you want is to start to have stomach pain or gas or different things like that when you're going through that because of the artificial sweeteners.
Awesome, thanks. And you talked a little bit about what we should include in our post-workout or post-practice meal, but how quickly after practice should we be eating?
I would say within an hour.
Within an hour.
So there's a lot of different research out there, and especially in my class, we looked at least for protein intake, that as long as you're hitting your goal within that 24 hours, so let's say your goal is 140 grams per day, as long as you're getting that within 24 hours, then it's shown to have similar, again, effects. But there's this whole talk of an anabolic window, so that building process, and if there truly is one. But I would say just for an overall meal, definitely try to have one within an hour, because you don't want your blood sugar to dip too low when you start to get brain fog, fatigue, different things like that.
Awesome, thanks. And then the last one. So I've got a lot of number crunching to do on everything that we've learned tonight. How can we get to a point where eventually we don't have to do math to figure out what we should eat and when?
I know, right? Well, when you find that out, let me know, because my job is a lot of math, actually. But I think the goal, again, is even if you don't know how much protein you need in your day, make sure you have protein at every meal and every snack, whatever capacity that is. I'm not always looking at how much protein I'm having at every meal. It's just, it's not realistic. Maybe if you're being super strict, you're training for something, you have a big season ahead, maybe that's time to really tune in and really track how much you're having. Just make sure you have protein at every meal. Make sure it's at least 1/4 of your plate. That's why I tried to hopefully give that visual, so that even if you don't know, you're like, okay, at least 1/4 of my plate is protein.
Yeah, that visual was really helpful. And we actually did have one more question come in specific to protein. There are so many different protein shakes on the market. Do you have an opinion on which ones are good or bad, or any recommendations for us?
Yeah, so I would say the biggest thing you want to look for is one that it has limited ingredients. You don't want something with a huge list. So if it has a huge list, really curious what's in that. So I would say the biggest ones I recommend are always Orgain. So ORGAIN. Vega Sport has a really good one, and super kind of just minimal ingredients. And keep it simple. And also think about if you can digest whey appropriately, because some people have issues with whey. So if you have a dairy intolerance, whey is not going to be your friend. So it's not going to help you get to where you want to be. So maybe then that's time to check out a plant-based protein. But both those brands that I talked about, one, they sell them at Costco. They basically sell them at every store possible, and they're not super expensive. And they sell both animal and plant-based protein options. So really just, again, focusing minimal ingredients, NSF certified, different things like that.
Awesome. That's all. Those are all the questions I see for now. So Emily, thank you so much for kicking off our speaker series and talking to our student athletes about such an important topic. I really, really appreciate your time. And thanks to everyone in the OAC for tuning in.
Yes, thank you guys. I really appreciate it. And I had a great time. So any questions that come through, please feel free to reach out to me via Instagram or my email if Sarah provides it. And yeah, thanks guys.
Thank you so much. Have a great evening.
You as well.
Bye.